I think we are live on the internet. Jordan Sheridan,
Live on the internet.
Jordan Sheridan live with.
Jen dies on the
Oh
internet.
boy, Jen. I gotta tell you. You know, I'm a little tired physically. I'm a little tired mentally. I'm a little tired spiritually. Um, I was gonna take today off because I'm traveling to Cleveland tomorrow, which we'll talk about. But sometimes you just have a have something so important to do that you just have to say no. I'm going to get on the internet and I'm going to expose the very people keeping American citizens sick without
Mm-hmm.
justice. So that's what we're going to do. We'll wait for more people to come in. But Jen, before we get to the Flint stuff, I mean, Jesus, within the last 24 hours, status quo has just been on absolute fire.
Fire.
Meaning,
We have.
yes, we got, we were covering yesterday morning the coal miner strike in Alabama, not in Alabama, the Alabama workers that have been striking down in Alabama came up to New York City. Uh, I don't know the exact number, but it was definitely upwards of 500 union members striking right outside of BlackRock, the private equity Goliath that is killing the planet as the biggest investor in fossil fuels. It's quite the scene. I mean, I've covered a lot of protests that, they're nice, but, maybe 50 people, 70 people, 100 people. This was organized. This was hundreds of people, the energy. Um, I just was shooting kind of video with my phone, and one of those really kind of just took off. I think it has like 1.7 million views on Twitter. And, we streamed the whole protest or, yeah, rally on our Rockfin channel so people could check it out on our Rockfin channel. But it was really something to have that kind of crowd for that, not just the amount of views it got online, not just the amount of like retweets the tweet got, but I kind of started looking through the comments and people the people's comments about the video I shot. And I think a lot of things that we've been talking about, Jen, that people are losing hope, that people are angry, that people are cynical, that people feel like they don't have a leader, you started seeing like that hope coming back, people being energized, people looking at that rally and looking at how many people were there and looking at, the workers that were speaking and Susan Sarandon speaking, just demanding better wages, demanding better conditions. Kind of like that cynicism, that lack of hope, you started seeing kind of a direction, kind of energy. I don't know. It was great to see. I mean, I haven't gone through all the responses, but it was great to see such energy at that rally.
Yeah, it was, watching it from home, you could feel the excitement and people were just energized by it because it's true. It feels like some hope, some organizing there. And as you were saying, this wasn't just a protest or just a rally. And I'm not saying, just in a derogatory way, but these people are actively striking, a lot of them. And then union members from a lot of different states came to support these folks, these striking coal miners from Alabama. And, the celebrity support, bringing attention to it from Susan Sarandon and others, just fantastic to see. And the coverage was really amazing. Great interviews. So that's all up on Rockfin, and we'll have additional videos up here too
And
on YouTube and elsewhere.
can I just say, like, I know Susan Sarandon gets a lot of shit, but like, she's like Batman. She's everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
She's she's outside AOC's office one day. She's at the coal miners' strike the next day. I don't know for sure, but from what I've been told, she's planning on going to some other places and doing some activism. So, people could criticize Susan Sarandon, but she's out there. I mean, she's showing up she's not, 25. She's a little bit older now. And she's still showing up, not just in New York, but in other places. She was also at the New York City Medicare for All march on Saturday. So she's hitting a lot of different places, and she's doing it not just because she wants to, but she knows it's unfortunately to get media coverage, it might take her speaking for media to cover it. The protest outside AOC's office that we just covered the other day, where she spoke, that got media coverage, of course, from Fox News, but Mediaite also, mainly because Susan Sarandon spoke and kind of called out AOC a little bit. So, kudos to her. Zach, $50. Keep up the
All
good work.
right.
And we
Thank
are
you,
going to, by
Zach.
the way, we are going to ask you to support us today. We're headed to Cleveland. I'm headed to Cleveland tomorrow to cover Nina Turner's election. It's not confirmed yet, but after Cleveland, which will be there for the last, this weekend and through the election next week, it's not confirmed, but we're trying to organize a trip to Minnesota right from Cleveland to cover the Line 3 protests. So all this costs a lot of money. Today, Colin, who is our editor, is up here with me. Today we're going to get him. We have to get him a new laptop because right now he's handling live streams on his phone. He's coming with me on the road, so like he needs a laptop to edit and things like that. He can't edit on his phone. So a lot of costs coming up for Status Coup. But as Jen always says, you gotta invest to grow. When I complain about money to her, so that's what we're doing.
And we also had to do, and we'll show you this and talk more about this, but in our efforts to try to get the truth about Flint out and push it, we got a press release out, which was very pricey. So we'll talk about why we did that and how we did that and more. So we do appreciate your support and funding, and we need it right now. So we'll talk about that additionally. So any support is welcome.
Yeah, I don't think we created a specific fundraiser for these trips. So you could always go to.
I will be doing so, but
Okay.
yeah.
For today, super chats are welcome. GoFundMe is welcome. I just put the GoFundMe link in there, and of course, if you're
GoFundMe.com/status coup.
Yes, and if you're not a Status Coup member, we hope you'll sign up today. So, in addition to and smash the like button, we're obviously much earlier than we usually go live. So smash the like button so people know we're live. Share this live stream if you can. In addition to that incredible rally we covered yesterday, the coal miners rally. And by the way, Jen, just want to point out, all these people, you notice certain YouTube hosts and people who rant and rave and about politicians not doing things didn't even cover this coal miners strike. It's kind of strange to me. Very strange to me that there's hosts and tweeters that are ranting and raving that politicians aren't fighting, that YouTube hosts aren't fighting, but then when there is a massive protest in New York City with hundreds of workers who have been striking for 4 months, I didn't really see it covered. I think Breaking Point's covered it. I haven't seen it elsewhere, so we'll see. So
yeah, there's a lot of people. As I was clicking on to grab our own YouTube link to push it out, I had to get past the variety of other YouTube hosts talking about other YouTube hosts yet again, or still. So
right. Anyway, so in addition to that rally we covered yesterday, as I was leaving the rally, I got a statement back. For those of you living under a rock, Jen and I broke a major story. And by the way, we're desperately going to try to keep up with all the super chats, but we don't want to ruin the flow. Colin's doing a lot of things in the background, so we'll try to read every super chat. Don't be bad at us because YouTube, it falls off the screen after a while, but we're going to try to read as many as we can. Colin, if you have the bandwidth, I know you're doing a lot to put them in the StreamYard. That would be great.
Yeah, if you can put them in the private chat, that works great.
Yeah, Chris, $5, supporting real journalism. By the way, don't waste your time at Trolls Online, slandering Nina, or saying Pelosi will fund an AOC challenger to her left. Yeah, I spoke with Jen. We spoke yesterday. I think we've said everything we need to say. We're not going to go on responding to every nihilist out there. If I feel I need to respond to something, I will. But other than that, people could watch us if they want. If they want to watch other people that are more, like everyone's a sellout and fraud, they could do that. But, we're just going to do what we do, which is report and go out there. So
I will say, I think like our final words on the topic come in our to be released interview on the Empire Files podcast with Abby Martin and her partner, Mike Preisner. So we recorded that yesterday. It's a great, we had a great time. We had talked about our Flint reporting, the other pandemic road trip, and we talked about the left. So wait for our analysis on that to drop.
Yes.
And that's going to be the last word.
Yeah. So, bottom line, hold on, I'm just sending this to somebody.
Smash the like button while you're waiting, friends. Let's get the YouTube algorithm going. Welcome to those on Twitch and on Twitter and Rockfin, wherever you're watching. We appreciate you.
Oh, and by the way, I mean, we just have not had time to even address this. YouTube took down Jen's live stream from Saturday. Jen was covering the DC March for Medicare for All. Took it down. Interestingly enough, right after she interviewed Marianne Williamson, we got a error message, video deleted by the user. I mean, I was handling the back end of YouTube. I was doing the live chat and everything. I didn't delete it. There's only a few people who have access to our YouTube channel. They didn't delete it. So we did our normal kicking and screaming on YouTube. It got a lot of, kicking and screaming on Twitter. It got a lot of traction on Twitter. YouTube finally responded saying, continuing to tell us it was deleted by the user. I said, well, what you're suggesting is we got hacked then, because nobody on our end deleted it. Can you tell us what you're talking about? Then they restored it 2 days later with no answer on who this user is that deleted it. So just to let you know, apparently YouTube is deleting live streams, telling the channels that it was deleted on our end, and then restoring it and not really giving an answer as to why it was taken down in the first time. So that's a new trick. But now let's move on to Flint. Let's move on to Flint now. So as I was leaving the rally yesterday, the coal miners rally, I got an email from the Congressional House Oversight Committee. For those of you that don't know, obviously there's different committees in Congress, and the House Oversight Committee is the committee that former Michigan Governor Rick Snyder testified in front of in 2016. As our reporting over several years has shown, it seems he perjured himself in front of that committee. In January of this year, Jen and I broke a story with The Intercept that kind of showed a little bit, showed the tentacles of what that perjury was, which is basically the former governor told Congress that he did not know about a deadly waterborne bacteria called Legionnaire's disease that killed a lot of people in Flint. The actual number of people killed, I think we just don't know. I don't believe the state's numbers. I think most objective people wouldn't believe 12 people died of this. So, we had reached out in January after our bombshell story for The Intercept, asking the House Oversight Committee, I think perjury is a crime still federally. Are you planning on bringing Snyder back in front of you? You can't use the excuse anymore that the committee is controlled by Republicans because Democrats control the House. So back then in January, they gave us a very lawyered up answer, kind of saying we are closely monitoring the Flint criminal investigation led by Michigan. I responded, okay, but why does, as far as I know, legally, a state criminal investigation has no bearing on federal perjury. So there's nothing stopping you from bringing a former governor back before Congress if there's suspicion that he had perjured himself in front of your committee. The criminal investigation in Michigan does not stop you from doing that. And, like many other things in politics and corporations, they would not respond back on the record. They responded off the record. I won't get into it because it's off the record, but it was a bunch of bullshit. So fast forward, Jen, we obviously broke this big story last, what is it now, 7 days ago for The Intercept and Detroit Metro Times. in a nutshell, if you're brand new to this, we found that top advisors and officials in Governor Snyder's administration, their phones were erased shortly before the launch of a criminal investigation. Their phones were either completely erased or some of them, their phones weren't completely erased, but their text messages were gone from 2014 all the way through October 2015, which was the actual 18-month period that Flint used the Flint River. Found a whole lot of other things, including Snyder himself refused to hand over key Flint documents to criminal prosecutors, that Snyder's top advisor interfered with the criminal investigation. So I don't know, Jen, kind of like in a sane journalistic world, significant bombshells that had never been reported before. Am I correct?
You are absolutely correct. A ton of bombshells never before reported.
Right. So we'll get into the lack of independent media coverage later. But, you know, I don't know, maybe I'm just a little naive, but I really thought, okay, the other stories we broke a story with Vice in April of last year. It got drowned out because obviously that was the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic. So that didn't really go anywhere. The Intercept story we covered in January, or broke in January of this year, unfortunately was published the same day Trump was impeached for a second time, right before Biden was inaugurated. So that really didn't get much traction. But I thought, all right, well, this is getting published in the dead of summer. There's nothing major news-wise going on, like, you know, a mass shooting or, you know, another black man being murdered, or, you know, obviously there's a lot of news, but nothing significant like that would take up the whole news cycle, other than, you know, CNN and MSNBC covering the January 6th committee. So we broke this, and I don't know, Jen, maybe I'm just still got a little naivete left. I kind of think at some point, if you are exposing a massive government cover-up, the media would kind of lose the very little credibility they have left if they don't at least do a write-up. So then yesterday, they haven't covered it. Aside from a few indie channels, no mainstream media outlet has covered our bombshell. I've sent it to Rachel Maddow's executive producer. I've sent it to Chris Hayes, executive producer. Sent it to the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Associated Press, the Detroit Free Press, the Detroit News, Flint Journal. I know you have sent it to a lot of places. So yesterday, we actually got a statement back from the House Oversight Committee in response to our bombshell story that actually was a relatively substantive statement. Colin, I'm going to pull up the Detroit Metro Times article on this, if you have that ready to go. Headline, House Oversight Committee investigating new allegations in Flint water crisis cover-up report by the Metro Times. So this is the Detroit Metro Times. Until now, as of now, it's the only Michigan outlet that has covered this. We published the story in the Intercept as well as the Detroit Metro Times. So right off the top, you see the statement from the House Oversight Committee to us. Quote, "It would be deeply troubling if any of the officials involved in the poisoning of Flint's children destroyed evidence of their misconduct," Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney, a New York Democrat, said in a statement. She's actually the chairwoman of the House Oversight Committee. So that's her committee. She's the chair. Quote, "Governor Snyder obstructed the committee's investigation from the outset and set the tone that his decisions were above accountability. Governor Snyder made the choice to put money over the lives of children in Flint, and he must be held accountable." Additionally, a source tells us, Jordan and Jen, that the committee is now investigating based on our report. So they're investigating, you know, the erased phones, the missing messages, whether Snyder knew about any of this, all those things. So I don't know, Jen. I mean, maybe we just live in the twilight zone. Maybe we're doing this all wrong. But in a week, we not like the Intercept's pretty well known. Detroit Metro Times, pretty reputable. We broke that the former governor of Michigan, who is currently on his way to criminal trial, so currently in the news, he's about to stand or at least go into his pretrial. He was charged with a misdemeanor. We broke. His top officials erased their phones. His top officials had no messages for a year and a half on their phones. He himself refused to cooperate with the investigation. His top advisor and self-described fixer was interfering with the investigation. Not only did we break that, but Michigan Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib has spoken out about our story. Congressman Ro Khanna has spoken out on our story. Erin Brockovich has called this a massive cover-up. Susan Sarandon spoke out. Mark Ruffalo spoke out. Marianne Williamson spoke out. We're hoping, fingers crossed, Bernie Sanders person got back to me yesterday. We're hoping Bernie speaks out. So you have Congress people speaking out, including a Michigan congresswoman, and now you have the House Oversight Committee issuing a statement condemning potential destruction of evidence. Sources tell us they're now going to investigate it. Whether they will or not is another story. Still, there's no coverage. So, Jen, you're a student of psychology. You studied psychology. Explain to me. Can you explain to me because we're going to actually show emails from a lot of these reporters and editors. Can you explain to me the silence and the mindset of reporters and editors that would, what else could you call it other than deliberately bury a big government cover-up that killed people?
I may be a student of psychology, but I will never understand. I got into journalism because I wanted to uncover and report truth. And I believe in justice. I will never understand, no matter how long I try to just study, the mindset of people. I will never understand how you can be a journalist and know that something is true and know that reporting information could, help bring justice, and you have a responsibility to do so. And yet you sit on it. You don't report it. And I don't get it. No.
And by the way, just so you know, what we're about to unleash, because I'm very calm now, but it's about to go a little nuclear. This is not just about Flint. Like what we're about to show you and the ridiculous comments we have gotten from reporters and editors on why they're not covering this. We are dropping the veil. We are showing you the face. We are showing you corporate media burying stories, not just about Flint, but how they do it, period. How they do it, period. So this is very valuable because it's one thing to bash the corporate media. It's another thing to actually show you. And I personally have resisted basically for a year in showing most of the emails I've had with reporters from these outlets, showing most of the emails I've had with editors from these outlets, because, it's a delicate dance, right? I would love to burn it all down. But, as I've said with Force to Vote, if you're trying to get people to do something, calling them Lucifer fraud sellouts and being venomous probably won't get it done. But now I feel like we have to show it because, frankly, it is very clear it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if we're diplomatic to these editors. It doesn't matter if we are nice to these editors. It doesn't matter if we have asked nicely to these editors. And I'm not, by the way, we're not like firing bombs that they're Lucifer. But the reason we're showing you the communications is because clearly, at this point, and I know it sounds like I'm being sarcastic, but I'm really not. I genuinely do not know, Jen. I genuinely do not know if we found video or we obtained audio of a former Michigan governor, saying something like, we got to stop this from getting out. I genuinely don't know if they'd cover it. I really don't.
Yeah, I agree.
So it's time to show these emails. And some of these emails are a result of our Status Quo viewers pestering these people. So kudos to Henry, who might be in the chat, some others that have reached out. And we're going to show these.
And by pestering, we mean nicely emailing them to cover important reporting.
Right. Like not, sending poop to their door, but emailing them. Why aren't you covering this? So we're showing you this because I think you deserve to know the people that are burying this. The people of Flint should know the people that are burying this. And frankly, people should know how the corporate media works in burying things. Let's get going. Colin,
Buckle up.
Colin, let's start with one of our viewers, Henry. We've blacked out his last name. Henry sent an email to Leonard Fleming, who is a reporter with the Detroit News, who has covered the Flint water crisis extensively. So he said, Mr. Fleming, please do something to cover this important story. The lives of most of the people in this country may be soon hanging in the balance if the word of this deliberate disaster and cover-up are not put in front of more people. And he linked to our story with The Intercept. Here is Mr. Fleming's response to Henry. I'm sorry, but I'm not sure you actually know what you are talking about. The Detroit News, under my reporting, has done more than just about anyone on the Flint water crisis. Much of this story below that you linked to has already been reported by multiple outlets. The former governor has been indicted. More charges may come. So, I don't know, Jen, how do you read that response?
It's absurd. It's rude. It's a flat out lie.
Colin, keep it up while Jen talks. Go ahead.
This guy, Fleming, knows that this stuff has not been reported. He knows that the story, that when Henry linked to Jordan and my story, he knows that stuff has not been reported. He's lying to Henry. And thankfully, Henry knows the truth. Henry knows that has not been reported. And it's a rude response in any case. Like, even if that were true, it's just a rude, prickish response. But it's just a lie. So the former governor has been indicted. More charges may come. So he's also trying to placate, Henry, this reader, viewer who he doesn't know has the knowledge that he knows. And he's hoping that this reader will just go away and just take his word for it. And it's just disgusting. So he clearly has no interest in reporting the truth and telling the truth in any sense of the word.
And I also think what's so arrogant about it is this is very like mission accomplished, Henry. Like first of all, much of the story, none of the story has been reported, as Jen just said, but Governor Snyder has been indicted. More charges may come. So it's like, oh, work done. Mission accomplished. He's been indicted.
With a hand slap, with a misdemeanor, like equivalent of a couple parking tickets.
Right. Colin, you could come back to us. So I thank you, Henry, for sending us that and for sending it to that Mr. Fleming, who, by the way, I mean, I don't know Leonard Fleming. I do know he's covered the Flint water crisis. I haven't read every story he's done, but we're not like calling him the devil. He's covered it, but his outlet has also ignored major bombshell stories that they didn't do. So next up, and by the way, it takes a lot of time.
Thank you for sending us that response, Henry, and thank you for writing in the first place. So
I reached out to Mr. Fleming. I reached out last night, 8:51 p.m. Leonard, this is Jordan Sheridan, who, along with my partner Jen, broke a major Flint water investigation story in The Intercept and Detroit Metro Times that your outlet has yet to cover. Despite the Congressional House Oversight Committee now investigating based on our reporting, and your own Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib speaking out, along with Congressman Ro Khanna and many others. A viewer of ours sent over a response you sent to him asking for you to cover the story. Your response, and I just copied and pasted the arrogant message he sent to Henry. So I said, I've reported on the ground in Flint nearly 20 times since 2016. I'm from New York. Jen has been there nearly 10 times. We must not be as seasoned as journalists as you are. So can you please point me in the direction of both your stories and the stories that have, quote, already been reported by multiple outlets on? And then I just went down the list of the key details that we just broke a week ago, including the governor's press secretary's phone being erased shortly before a criminal investigation was launched, top officials with the health department's phones having no messages on them for 2014 all the way through October 2015. The 18-month period Flint used the Flint River. Nobody communicated about Flint in 18 months when residents were complaining for 18 months. Environmental officials allegedly having their phones dumped off at the state IT department. I mean, I just went down the list. And Colin, if you could show the continued message, I included that, Governor Snyder did not provide key documents to prosecutors. So after I went down the list of, please provide me with your stories and other outlets' stories that have already reported this, I wrote, I assume what you are going to send us isn't a sentence from a court motion by the Solicitor General of Michigan that mentioned a list of names ominously titled phones wiped. So that there was a court motion filed by the Solicitor General in 2019 that mentioned that they found a list titled phones wiped, but that was it. I mean, there was no details of whose phones were they, when were they wiped, nothing. I said, I eagerly await you sending me any story from you or, quote, multiple other outlets that reported or broke any of these specific details. And when you're finished telling people you've done more Flint reporting than anyone else, from what I have been told, you did indeed do some good reporting early on. Can you maybe find the time to do a write-up or on major new details of what appears to be a multi-layered government cover-up in your state that has led to untold number of deaths in Flint? And the Congressional House Oversight Committee now investigating based on our reporting that, according to you, has, quote, already been reported by multiple outlets? I'm not expecting a response from you because, unfortunately, in my time reporting in Michigan, I've only dealt with journalists who ignore major bombshell stories, in some cases because their editors mandate it, in other cases because they just don't care. But despite not expecting a response, I do genuinely hope you actually read the whole story, the details of which you will very quickly realize have never been previously reported. And by the way, Jen, this is not the first editor. This is not the first reporter to send us a response falsely claiming that what we've reported, what we just broke, has already been out there.
Yep.
So this is almost like a talking point that maybe they're getting from like their top editor in chief. They are lying. They're either really, really clueless or they're just knowingly lying. Because just think about it for a second. Do you think Vice News, which we broke a major story with last year, do you think The Intercept, which we broke 2 major stories with this year, the Detroit Metro Times, do you think their army of editors wouldn't catch that the headline of the story, the key details of the story have already been out there? Do you think all of these outlets are just fucking clueless? Do you think I'm clueless and Jen's clueless? So, interestingly enough, Jen, Mr. Fleming, and by the way, we're not doxing
Well, hold on.
him.
So, first of all, I want to prepare you guys. So, I see a lot of comments that are like furious at what Fleming has already said. Again, I say, buckle up. You are not prepared for what's coming. My jaw dropped at this response to Jordan.
Oh, and I'm going nuclear, baby. I'm going nuclear.
It's absurd.
I'm going to go nuclear. So, interestingly enough, and smash that like button, I got a response from Mr. Fleming this morning. And by the way, again, we didn't dox Mr. Fleming. His email is actually public, so you could find it. We've redacted his email. So, I don't know. I'm a journalist. If people want to email me, it's fair game. If people want to email the Detroit News about their coverage or no coverage, it's fair game. So Mr. Fleming responded to me this morning, if you can get that, Colin. Jordan, I don't know you or heard of you, nor did I ever see you at any of the hearings or in Flint in the years I spent up there reporting on the crisis. Here's my suggestion. Don't tell me what you've been told. Go read. Go read. Take it from someone who has broken major stories from Philadelphia to Chicago to Detroit to Indianapolis to Houston in a very long journalism career. You don't go and write veteran journalists with long emails extolling your virtues and castigating work that you haven't seen, or telling me that I haven't done my job and this is something we must chase, especially in Flint. If you believe your story is great, then let your story stand alone. It's one thing to promote your story, but it's another thing to have a bunch of people pepper reporters with emails. Oh boy, boy. So first of all,
Oh my God.
you all have read the emails, and we're going to show you more emails that I have sent. None of my emails have extolled my virtues. None of my emails even talk about myself. They literally link to stories these outlets are ignoring, and yeah, call them out for ignoring it. I don't know. Is stating that I've been there 17 times extolling my virtue? No, it's the facts. So, secondly,
Jordan, go read. Go read.
yeah, yeah. So he says, I've never seen you at the hearings or in Flint in the years I spent. Well, first of all, I don't live in Michigan, so no, I was not at the Flint criminal hearings that went on for a year, pretrial hearings. You got me there. But if you've never seen me in Flint, probably likely because you weren't at most of these events, from town halls I covered to town halls I hosted when I was at the Young
Well, we
Turks.
do have that one. We should have sent him that one clip of me challenging Nick Lyons' lawyer.
Right. So this is where it gets even better, because obviously he's never seen me because it doesn't seem like he's been to most of these things. Here's my suggestion. Don't tell me what you've been told. Go read. Well, Jen.
I could not go read. I could not believe that he would say that.
I don't know. I've read a couple stories in my time on the Flint water crisis. I got Google alerts. You got Google alerts on the Flint water crisis. I've read Mr. Fleming. I've read the Detroit Free Press. I've read the Flint Journal. So I've read Mr. Fleming. Oh, I've read.
More importantly, we've knocked on around 400 Flint doors, and you in particular said countless hundreds of hours speaking to Flint residents on the phone, etc.
Right. So I've read a lot, Mr. Fleming. And you know what I haven't seen? And in the email I send him back, you'll see. I have not seen one story from you or the Detroit News, which is the second largest newspaper in Michigan, on evidence that Rick Snyder's environmental department manipulated testing data that we got because we knocked on doors while you were sitting there reading out your resume to me of all the great stories you've broken. We actually knocked on doors. I have not read one story from you or the Detroit News on a major bombshell story in Vice that the former governor of Michigan's top advisor was going around Flint offering sick residents payoffs. I didn't read a story about that from you or the Detroit News. I didn't read a story from you or the Detroit News with the audio of Governor Snyder's top advisor. We got audio of him in a meeting at a sick Flint couple's home offering them a special deal. Richard Baird, the governor's top advisor, was charged in January with perjury, extortion, misconduct in office, and obstruction of justice. Misconduct in office, extortion, those two charges, part of it is linked to our report in Vice that you and your fucking outlet ignored for over a year. Please send me your story on that. Please send me your story with details about the governor of Michigan's top advisor and best friend going around Flint and offering sick couples payoffs. I'm ready to read it. Secondly, Mr. Fleming. Again, we've already established I read. You don't go and write veteran journalists with long emails extolling your virtues and castigating work that you haven't seen. Well, we've already established I haven't seen the work because it doesn't fucking exist. This work that you claim does not exist. You haven't done it. Your outlet hasn't done it. You quote multiple other outlets. It doesn't exist. If it did, trust me, Jen and I, oh my God, I would sleep much longer. I would feel much less burnt out because I wouldn't have to investigate these things. Jen wouldn't have to investigate these things if they already existed. Secondly, with all due respect, you want to talk to me about extolling your virtues as you give me your long resume of terrific stories you've broken? Awesome. Seriously, awesome. I'm sure you've done good work. But what does that have to do with a current major government cover-up in your state. What is the stories you've broken in other places? Which kudos to you. What does it have to do? The price of tea in China, as they say. Thirdly, so, Mr. Fleming, you hold supposedly you hold government officials accountable, right? And, all that jargon about, justice and holding the powerful accountable. But it's another thing to have a bunch of people pepper reporters with emails. So you're a reporter who's done all these great things, broken major stories, I'm assuming taken some risks along the way, and you are beyond or above readers, people in Michigan, people in America sending you an email. Why aren't you covering this? This is against the 10 commandments of journalism for you to be emailed, for the audacity of us who did not ask our readers to contact you for over a year, did not ask our readers to contact the Detroit Free Press, the Detroit News, the Flint Journal for over a year. We reached out over and over and over again, either not getting a response or getting ridiculous responses. So, yeah, we said to our audience, hey, here's the email. It's actually public. Tell them what you think. So, wait a minute. I want to be clear. Are you beyond criticism, Mr. Fleming? I'm not. I get criticized all the time. Jen gets criticized. So, if you're not covering a major story, readers should just take it on faith. No, you've done enough. He's a good guy. We're not going to bother him. If that's how you feel, you should not be a journalist, because you are disconnected from reality. You are disconnected from the people that you're supposed to be covering. You're disconnected. You're arrogant, first of all. I mean, literally, I just responded to a viewer this morning who, frankly, was sending me an email, annoyed that I haven't responded to his emails. I wrote back, I think relatively nicely, hey, we're just two people here. We just went on a 2-week reporting trip. We just broke a major story. I'm going to Cleveland next. We can't respond to every email. I didn't tell him, I don't know who you are, but you don't know what you're talking about. And I mean, I have responded negatively to some people who are just crazy, but I was nice and just said, listen, I don't have time to read every email. I barely have time to pee right now. So Jen, before I get on to my response to Mr. Fleming, what are your thoughts? Because interestingly enough, if you noticed in his response, he did not cite his reports or these other outlets' reports that have already been reported. I didn't see him actually cite that.
Fascinating. Yeah. So I think I think it is extremely arrogant. Our viewers who emailed out of compassion for the people of Flint. They didn't email out of self-interest. Do you think that, Mr. Fleming, do you think that people are emailing because they're getting something personal out of it for themselves? No, they're emailing because they have hearts, because they care, because they know that this reporting is important. They know that this reporting has not been out there before. That's why they're emailing. So for you, Mr. Fleming, to email back with a really jerky response is insane. And also, like, the fact that he emailed back, like, to tell you to go read is just so absurd. I can't get over it. It's like, clearly we know what's going on in Flint. Like, for us to have published multiple investigative stories on Flint, like, he knows we know about Flint. He's just trying to knock us down a peg or whatever. I don't know what's going on in his head, but I think it's probably the case that there's not a chance to get through to Fleming, which is really sad, because this is the so-called Flint reporter there at the Detroit News. This is like a gatekeeper of people getting information that they need about Flint, like him, along with the editor. And as you've experienced, the editor is not on board either. So what is there to do?
Oh, We're
This
gonna
is a
get we're gonna get to the editor. Don't worry.
well, yeah, but so here we have a complete jerk who's like lying about what information is out there about Flint, who demeans journalists who are doing on the ground work, literal door knocking, investigative work with information and obtained documents that nobody else has, and is lying about that. And an editor who tells us to go kick sand. So these are gatekeepers who are preventing vital information from getting to the people of Flint, from getting to people who could take action on this.
And I also, for context, before I get to my response to him, which Jen can tell you, I really enjoy these emails. I really enjoy writing these emails. I craft them. It takes me time. My wife gets mad because I should be watching Downton Abbey with her, but I'm responding to these emails. But, you know, for context, this is not just our experience with Mr. Fleming, or our experience with the Detroit News, or our experience with the Detroit Free Press, or our experience with the Flint Journal. At this point, I've probably interviewed or off camera spoken to hundreds of people in Flint. Jen has spoken to plenty too. There's not one person, if I asked, and there's a lot of people who have particularly pointed out the Detroit News, Fleming's paper, as they don't listen to us, they ignore us, they write stenography for the state. Detroit News in particular is a more right-wing conservative outlet. They did essentially defended Snyder for 5 years during this water crisis, that they would basically take whatever PR the governor's office was sending out there about the water crisis and the water improving and just rewrite it as a story. So this isn't just our opinion of these outlets. This is the people of Flint who are supposed to be the ones they are covering, are supposed to be the ones they are fighting for the truth on behalf. This is their experience too with these reporters. And to be clear, I don't know Fleming. He seems like an arrogant asshole, but I don't really know him. Might be a good guy, might actually care about the people of Flint. Who knows? Might be overwhelmed, might be out to lunch, might be ready to retire. I don't know. But, you know, at a certain point, and part of what I think is important about journalism and status quo, particularly, you actually cannot, you know, every journalist has an ego, so do I. But your ego cannot rank higher than the actual story, right? So, for example, I've been covering Flint for 5 years. If a young whippersnapper came to me and just on their own had found information or broken it, I'd be the first one to jump on the story with them and elevate that person. Because it's not really to me about us. It's just, honestly, if you gave me a choice today between us winning an award or us collaborating with the Detroit Free Press, the Detroit News, even MSNBC, a corporate outlet, to get these stories out there, I would take it in a second to do it with them, even though I don't like them, just to get the story out there. Jen and I have literally offered the Detroit Free Press. We have offered Mother Jones, the Daily Beast, the New York Times, throw your reporter's name on the story in front of ours. Throw your reporter's name on the stories under the headline where the authors are before ours. Take the credit. It's fine. This is about the people of Flint for us, and I think most people would know.
Jordan has in certain cases offered to completely remove his name from stories.
Right.
Yeah. Before.
Right. So now let's get to my response because I love it. Love it. So, Leonard, and this was this morning. As I expected, you haven't actually responded with your stories or the multiple other outlets you cited that supposedly already reported the major story we broke last week that the Congressional House Oversight Committee is now investigating based upon. So before I go on, Jen, that's a very important point. Okay, they ignore the story for a week. That the Congress is now investigating based on our reporting. Even if Congress is just throwing us symbolism, even if Congress is just putting out a statement and they're not going to investigate, whatever. Congress, the chairwoman of the House Oversight Committee, has spoken out. They are telling us, a source is telling us, they're investigating it. That is major news that you must cover. It's not like a choice. Oh, let me try to get to it. Like That is a major headline that federally they are investigating new information based on a new report, and you're ignoring it. So that is not like an editorial choice. That is a choice to bury something, to go against basic journalism 101. I digress.
Yeah, and by the way, Mr. Fleming, they aren't investigating it because it's been covered by a bunch of other news outlets before.
Right. So I said to him, instead, you've sent me your resume, which sounds great. Kudos for your courtroom reporting during extensive pretrials. I don't live in Michigan, but have reported in Flint 17 times without the backing of a major media outlet, and expressed how egregious it is for veteran journalists to receive criticism from readers on their coverage or lack of coverage. This, literally, instead of actually, honestly, it would not have taken him time if these stories exist. If there's already been a story out there about the governor's press secretary's phone being erased before a criminal investigation, if there's already been stories about top health officials' messages missing, stories out there about the governor refusing to hand over documents to prosecutors, if those have already been out there, it would have taken him 10 seconds to send me one link, right? So, but instead, he responded how the tyranny of him being criticized because he's such a wonderful veteran journalist who's changed the world. You could think I'm a major prick. That's fine. But the more important thing is, why has one of Michigan's largest newspapers now ignored 4 significant Flint water investigation stories, all 4 of which broke major details of what appears to be a multi-layered government cover-up? By the way, this is not my editorializing or opinion. Our reporting showed prosecutors and investigators concluded this was a cover-up. That's important because, as a journalist, to be an official journalist, you have to not have an opinion, which is clearly bullshit. Everybody's biased. It's all theater that these are neutral robots. They're not. But our reporting showed you that prosecutors concluded the governor lied about his knowledge of a deadly bacterial outbreak. Prosecutors found that his top advisor, well, actually, we found it, but prosecutors then picked up on the governor's top advisor paying off sick residents. And down the list we go. And then I just listed to him the 4 stories they've ignored. The Vice story last year with Governor Snyder's top advisor paying off sick Flint residents who, by the way, told us, yeah, the governor's top advisor said to them, the governor knows. The governor knows about our conversations here, these special deals. I listed the Detroit Metro Times story that had the audio of one of those meetings between the governor's top advisor and a sick Flint couple. The Intercept story, where we obtained the governor's phone calls and his chief of staff's phone calls and his health director's phone calls, where we obtained notes from a meeting in October 2014, an environmental department meeting. And those notes indicated governor's briefings and mentioned the Legionnaire's disease in Flint. Well, Snyder said he didn't know about it till a year and a half after that. So that Intercept story had not just his calls that indicate he knew about it, but notes from a meeting that said the governor has been briefed. And then we listed the story we broke last week. And I finished, I too don't know you. I'm sure you're great. But aside from feeling instinctual anger at a pesky asshole like me, or readers daring to send you emails, I'm genuinely asking, why has Detroit News been ignoring these stories? On a factual basis, none of the specific details from the aforementioned stories had been reported before. If they were, I'm sure it would be easy enough for you to have sent it to me. By the way, when you tell me to go read, I hope you know I've professionally lived and breathed Flint for 5 years. Trust me, I know what's been reported and what has not. The bottom line, the people of Flint, and I think this is the most important part, Jen, the people of Flint, Michigan, the people of Detroit, the people of Michigan, and the rest of America deserves to be informed about this information. Your editor-in-chief has been aware of all of these stories for over a year, based on our correspondence. Yet the Detroit News has not done a write-up or followed up on any of it. This is simply dumbfounding. It's either because Flint is simply in the rearview mirror, as I've actually been told by some Michigan journalists, there's Flint fatigue, or there's something else going on. Regardless, I hope you could take that great resume of yours with amazing experience and accomplishments and help inform your readers of a treasure trove of new information in a government cover-up in your state. And,
Bravo.
you know, he's not going to respond because he's sitting on his little, you know, high horse. I don't know how old he is, but he sounds like an old, grumpy journalist who is like Carl Bernstein living off, you know, his Watergate.
Come back to us, Carl.
Yeah, and Carl Bernstein, by the way, I've seen him at parties. He's weird, but so it's just incredible to me because not only is he lying, and I think he knows he's lying, but in that lie, it's very clear that the most important thing to him is not actually getting the truth out for Flint. That's not the most important thing, it seems. The most important thing is basically expressing his outrage at being challenged. That seems to be the more important thing.
Yeah.
Expressing his outrage at being challenged. And I get it. As a journalist, if I feel I'm unfairly challenged, I might respond negatively. But I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, the sky is, you know, up is down. The sky is blue. None of these stories have been reported. That's just a fact. That's why he didn't send me any of the stories he claims are out there, because they don't exist. And it's just unbelievable to me, Jen. People need to understand a major reason we don't have Medicare for all in this country. A major reason we don't have universal pre-K, banning fracking, free public college, a serious climate change plan, reparations for black people, actual teeth, you know, to police reform, is because the corporate media has gatekeepers like this guy. And these and by the way, to be fair to Mr. Fleming, it's not just him. He's a reporter. A lot of the times it's their editors above them that are killing these stories or preventing further coverage of them. But you have gatekeepers that are human beings just like me and you, that are flawed human beings just like me and you, that are either maliciously or just because they're morons, because we've met a lot of morons too in media, that are hiding critical information. I have spoken with journalists, Jen, you have spoken to journalists, who literally are just reciting to us lies that they were fed by the Attorney General's office of Michigan or certain scientists that are lies. But they, instead of being critical thinking journalists, instead of not simply just believing government officials or science or, you know, EPA funded scientists, they just say, well, the Attorney General has already done this. The Attorney General says this. You know, we're not journalists. We don't actually see if it's true. We just tell you this is what we've been told because, you know, that's all we do. So this is why 7 years later, there hasn't been a conviction in the Flint water cover-up. Nobody's faced a trial. Flint doesn't have Medicare for all. Flint's only covered really on anniversaries by the national media because I'm not blaming it completely on this guy, to be clear, but because you have gatekeepers in the media that simply, they either don't give a shit anymore or for financial reasons, maybe they're advertisers, maybe their access to government officials, don't want to show the full bloody glory of a major government cover-up, Jen.
I want to highlight this comment by C.S. Moriah, which is the bigger story, the cover-up or the cover-up. I think that's pretty profound and apt. You have multiple layers of cover-ups seemingly here. Yeah, so I think, you know, if Leonard Fleming wants to realize what's actually happening here, maybe it's the case that he didn't look deep enough. Maybe he only skimmed the most recent piece by Jordan and myself. If he wants to do a mea culpa and report on this, by all means, don't even mention us. Whatever, mention the Intercept or the Detroit Metro Times or whatever, or report on the House Oversight Committee's actions. Whatever, just get the information out.
Or report and correct us if this has already been out. Do a whole story outlining how all of these details have already been reported. I'd love to see it. Totally. Love to see that too.
Yeah. This is about letting people know what is happening, about highlighting what Governor Rick Snyder and his administration did and did not do and what they are complicit in. And the cover up, the destruction of evidence, the fact that the House Oversight Committee is looking into this is very significant, and it's important, and the people of Flint deserve to know. The unfortunate fact is that we have, as many contacts as we have in Flint, we can only do so much. And we're spending a hell of a lot of our own time and a lot of money to try to get this story out, because it's not being picked up by media outlets. That's the fact. Because it's so important. It's so critical. This story, Jordan keeps calling it the biggest, what do you say, like the biggest government cover up
of this century, to be clear.
Of the century.
And
yeah.
And also, a broader thing here, and I would genuinely, I'm not being sarcastic, I'm just genuinely asking Mr. Fleming to think about this, because I don't know where he's from or his family's from. But Mr. Fleming, if you lived in a community, God forbid, that there was something that happened that made you sick, whether it be water, whether it be an environmental leak, whether it be, anything that could make you sick or potentially kill you, and more importantly, your children or your elderly parents. And there was information about it that was being reported, that people knew about this in the government and didn't notify you and your family to stop drinking the water or to stop whatever the case may be. And then after they stopped and covered it up in real time, they covered it up after the fact. So during a criminal investigation, they were doing things to obstruct a criminal investigation. Wouldn't you feel outraged if the news station down the road wasn't telling you and your family? Wouldn't you feel outraged if you kind of saw this on Facebook? Wouldn't you feel outraged at the fact that you pay taxes, you do the right thing, presumably, go to work, whatever, and you pay taxes to America because America is supposedly a democracy with a free press, but the free press is basically allowing information that could potentially hold the people that made you and your family sick and lied to you and your family and disregarded your life. We're talking about public officials disregarding your life, stopping information from getting to you that could save your life, that could save you from long-term sickness. Because it's not just about the deaths, it's about Flint residents who are slowly dying. And I know a lot of them. They're getting sicker over the years from lead poisoning and many other things. I just spoke with someone today that now needs to get surgery. I'm not going to discuss why, but related to the water. Wouldn't you be outraged if media outlets were ignoring like key specific details of who knew what, when, who covered it up, who stopped you and your family from knowing? I'm genuinely asking, because you could say till you're blue in the face, we already told Flint about these things. We've already reported about these things. No, you have not. No, you have not. I think you know you have not. You might have reported on other things. You have not reported on potential destruction of evidence, as in phones. You have not reported on the governor of the state refusing to hand over a treasure trove of documents to criminal prosecutors, the governor currently facing trial that says he's innocent. You haven't reported on any of this. You have not reported on the governor's top advisor allegedly paying off sick Flint residents. So I want you to think about, how would you feel? Because right now, my biggest outrage about this, Jen, is not that we're not blowing up. It's not that our story is not blowing up. It's the fact that I'd say 95% of Flint residents do not know about this story.
Yep.
The people affected do not know what we just broke because it's not on their local news outlets. It's not in the newspapers. Literally, I had somebody reach out to me yesterday who lives there. Her son was on the cover of Time magazine in 2016. A young African-American boy, cover of Time magazine, showing his rashes from the water. She reached out saying, a former reporter with the Detroit with the Detroit Free Press had sent her the story.
Oh my God. I know who you're talking about.
So she didn't see it on the Detroit Free Press. She didn't see it on Facebook. She didn't see it on the local news. A former reporter, presumably somebody with ethics and integrity, sent her the story that we broke. Apparently, that reporter who used to work for the Detroit Free Press knows this has not been reported. That's why she sent it.
Ugh, I'm about ready to drive to Flint and like just print out copies
Right.
and hand them out.
So let's get back to these fun emails because we're not done, Jen. Are you ready for more?
Yeah, I'm ready.
And by the way, as a reminder,
I'm getting furious, like more.
Yeah. As a reminder, I'm headed to Cleveland tomorrow to cover Nina Turner's election. We need funding. All of this is expensive. We spent a lot of money on the road those for that 2-week reporting trip. So super chats are really appreciated. Our GoFundMe is going strong. So I'll put that in the super chat. You know, obviously there's plenty of outlets out there asking you for dough and Patreon and this and that. I don't see them out there like we are. So please, if you can, support us. GoFundMe or sign up as a Status Coup member for as low as $5 a month. As a member, you obviously get bonus content. You get access to our members only call once a month. So really hope you could support us financially because money don't grow on trees and we don't take any corporate cash. So moving on. We've already addressed Mr. Fleming. Now let's address Mr. Fleming's boss, the editor-in-chief. The editor-in-chief of the Detroit Free Press.
And guys, to remind you, GoFundMe.com/status coup. Super chats would be incredibly helpful as Jordan is heading out with Colin to Cleveland to cover Nina Turner's race against Shontel Brown. And we have expenses related to trying to push this Flint story out. Please help us if you are at all financially able. We appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you, Karis.
And we got to buy Colin a laptop today. We got to buy Colin a laptop today because he can't edit on his phone on the road. So a lot of expenses. That's why most outlets, besides them not caring about these stories, don't do it. It's very expensive to do real reporting. But we have done it bootstrapped since the beginning. We don't take corporate money. So thank you for your support. So
we appreciate you, Karis. Thank you. Yay.
Thank you, Karis. So Gary Miles is the editor-in-chief of the Detroit News. So Leonard's boss. So Lisa, a Status Coup viewer, thank you, Lisa, emailed him, I think it was yesterday, and wrote, "Hello, Mr. Miles. Stand up and be a proud muckraker. I am pleading with you to begin to push the huge story below to help publicize this nationally. A lot of the deep investigative part has already been done, although I would hope that you, with all of your resources, could dig even deeper and help to push the Michigan legislature to prosecute all of the responsible parties. This is literally more important than Watergate, and the investigators are not even concerned with getting the credit. They only want the facts to get out, as they should. Jordan Chariton and his partner Jen have dedicated a lot of their life for a couple years now to tracking down the evidence needed to set the record straight. All you need to do is run with it and make it catch fire. They are not big enough to make that happen, and not from lack of trying. Please help the people who really need help and stop protecting those who do not. There really should be a Pulitzer Prize at the end of the line for anyone brave enough to put this." Lisa, I couldn't agree more. Hand the Pulitzer to Gary for all I care. Just get the people to know. So Gary responded in Gary's defense, a lot nicer than, Gary should teach his reporter how to respond to people. Because Gary responded a lot better. Gary responded, "Thank you. I assure you that we're reviewing this report and will continue to cover the Flint water crisis and efforts for justice." So Jen, I don't know, do you think the Detroit News has a couple more reporters and resources than us?
Just a little bit. Some more backing than we have.
So in their review, which is now what is it, 8 days later. I don't know. Does it take 8 days to reach out for comment to the Attorney General's office? Does it take 8 days to reach out to comment to Governor Snyder's, to the other people mentioned in the story? Does that take 8 days? Because they already responded to us or declined to comment. Does it take 8 days to, I don't know, reach out to us to ask, can we confidentially see the documents that your story is based on, which we've offered in the past, because they want to verify. I don't. I understand. There's other news in Michigan. You have a lot of reporters at the Detroit News, way more than we do. What is this? What is the review process? Please explain the review process to me. Excuse me. How long do you need to review it to cover the fact that the House Oversight Committee, Congress, has responded and is investigating? Do you need a month to review it? Do you need a month to write that Congress is investigating? So, in fairness, Mr. Miles does a very lovely response to Lisa. So I want to go back in time, Jen. Let's go back in time. This is my email to Gary Miles last year. I believe it was in April. If you guys decide
thanks for the super chat, Hair of the Dog Show, $5. Appreciate you.
Thank you. So I wrote Mr. Miles after Jen and I broke a massive Flint story for Vice. And I said, if you guys decide to practice journalism tomorrow, here's the last Flint mayor reiterating on camera.
To make it clear so that Jordan doesn't look mean, this was not the first email.
Oh, yeah. I don't I don't first email them calling me that.
Yeah.
So I said, if you guys decide to practice journalism tomorrow, here's the previous Flint mayor reiterating on camera, on the record, what Vice reported, that Governor Rick Snyder asked her to get the late Chairman Elijah Cummings, who was the chairman of the House Oversight Committee, to back off from investigating him, which I confirmed with 3 other sources that Weaver told them this at the time it happened, and Snyder hasn't responded to 7 to 10 requests for comment with the link to the story. Also now have on camera sick Flint residents confirming Richard Baird, the governor's right-hand man, tried to pay them off. Who would have thought the easiest part of this would be breaking a major government cover-up, and the hardest part would be getting one of Michigan's top outlets to inform Michiganders? One has to wonder why the Detroit News would be silent on reporting of the cover-up of the biggest environmental calamity of the last decade or so. So, Mr. Miles responded. This was April of 2020. Hi, Jordan. Again, this is the talking point. As you know, a lot of this incredible episode has been covered, but we are still reviewing your excellent work to evaluate which and how new threads you expose can and should be tied together, especially those that don't rely on anonymous sources, with our own reporting. There's a good chance it will be with some of our own reporting as well when some of the latest COVID crisis abates. Well done on your part. So, Mr. Miles.
Gary seems nice,
Yep. Not as much of a douche as Leonard. Mr. Miles, first of all, again, and I asked him for this, can you point me to the story that you or other outlets did that exposed the governor of Michigan's top advisor offering sick Flint residents payoffs? Because he said a lot of this has been covered already, which is what his employees said, which is a lie, and they know it's a lie. But we are still reviewing, again, with their review process. They're still reviewing a year later now. They're still reviewing your excellent work to evaluate which and how new threads you expose can and should be tied together. So let me focus on that one point, Jen. Thank you, Justin, $10. Stellar reporting, Status Coup. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Even newspapers who do original reporting, they also do something called aggregation. Mm-hmm. So other people report or break stories, and those newspapers then do a story on what other people broke. And if they have integrity, they credit the other outlets. The New York Times is famous for not crediting other outlets and pretending that they reported it first. But Detroit News, and Gary knows this, they generally do not, their policy or standard is not only cover do short write-ups or long write-ups on stories that other people have reported. Hell, all of these outlets take stories that originate from the Associated Press and rewrite them. So when Gary tries to basically straddle this line that we're reviewing and will, follow up if we find anything. No, Gary, that's not what you're doing. And you know it. What you're doing is burying bombshell new information from your audience, which, by the way, again, Detroit News is a conservative outlet who, by and large, defended Governor Snyder for 5 years. So that's what you're doing. You're not reviewing it. If you're reviewing it, then you're a moron. If you are reviewing it and deciding, well, all of this has been out there already. No, it has not. Again, he never sent me one article that showed this has been reported before we broke it. Neither has Mr. Fleming, because they don't exist. So he's less obnoxious and arrogant than Fleming, but it's all the same lies. And then he says, especially those that don't rely on anonymous sources. So he's subtly saying your story's kind of weak because it's based on anonymous sources. Well, Gary, I don't know what journalism school you went to. I didn't go to journalism school, but I did take a class or two. Mm-hmm. And I do think for certain stories based on certain topics, you have to keep sources anonymous for their protection. Not their protection because they don't want to be, they don't want to be public, but their protection because those sources are taking great risks that could potentially have a lot of they could have a lot of consequences for speaking with journalists or providing certain things to journalists. So when you say anonymous sources, there's anonymous sources for a reason, because if they went public, they could have serious problems. Secondly, the story that he's responding to me about, which Jen and I broke for Vice, literally the image on the story is Rick Snyder and a sick Flint woman who was on the record. It's not an anonymous source. That story, we spoke with Christina Murphy, who in 2017, her and her husband, they're not together anymore, were approached by the governor's top advisor and offered what they say is a payoff. And Baird, we found, lied about it to others, saying that he was personally paying for their treatment when the state of Michigan was paying for their treatment. And he told them, don't tell anyone about this. And why did he do it? Because Adam, her husband, had gone to a Flint town hall, raised holy hell about the lack of action from Governor Snyder and his administration, and the media picked it up. So they were trying to silence this couple and this man to keep it quiet, because they don't want media attention on this. They wanted to continue pushing the public relations narrative that it's all getting better. So this editor-in-chief, you're talking about the editor-in-chief of one of the largest media outlets in the state of Michigan, is either a moron or he's lying that the story is all based on anonymous sources. Is Christina Murphy anonymous? And by the way, Mr. Gary, the documents that we obtained, okay? Of course, no journalist will discuss documents they obtained or that kind of stuff, because you don't discuss those things. Are the documents real or are they not? Did you find information that the documents we obtained that were from the criminal investigation, did you find information that those were not authentic? So you're focusing on anonymous sources, even though the main source is on the record, and then you're ignoring all the documents that support that there was alleged payoffs. And then you have the audacity, the sheer audacity to say there's a good chance it will be with some of our own reporting when we follow up. Well, it's, I don't know, Jen, almost a year and a half later, I guess they're still reviewing it. I guess they're still reviewing our Vice story from April. And in fairness, there was a major pandemic going on. Michigan cases were out of control. We could have given them a little grace period not to cover it, but he never covered it.
I get alerts about Flint so I have Google alerts for Flint that release immediately. I have it set for immediate release, and they could have covered it. Let's say every little thing that happens, whether important or not, they talk about. So no, right. I don't give them any wiggle room. Let's say.
So moving on.
Deep Moody Purple Blues, $5 in the super chat. Thank you for your excellent work, folks. Keep punching up and pushing back. Thank you so much.
We will.
And also, I want to say thank you so much to Anonymous, $20 in the GoFundMe. Thank you. And Lana Dell, $25 in the GoFundMe. Thank you. We appreciate you guys. Keep Absolutely. It up. GoFundMe.com/statuscoup. It really helps defray the cost of travel, the cost of helping get this Flint story out, which we'll talk more about, and the cost of, we need to get Colin a laptop and other stuff, field costs, etc.
So I responded to him. Thanks, Gary. Actually, 75% of this has never been reported. And then I just went down the list of all the new information in the story that obviously he knows has never been reported. He's lying. His reporter is lying. It seems that this talking point is coming from the top because it's the same fucking talking point. That's not true. Then I wrote him after I went down the list. I said, I don't know you from a hole in the wall, and I know you recently took over, but I do know the Detroit News aired on the side of quasi-press releases supporting Snyder for the last 6 to 7 years. That statement might turn you off or seem harsh, but you know what I think is harsher? Poor children not being able to read and write or articulate. 35 to 45-year-olds dying. I'm in contact with 10 recurrently. Maybe I'm a little aggressive. You know why? Because corruption persists when the media is complicit in covering it up rather than covering it. Feel free to check all the facts. The story is airtight. And by the way, again, these are not my first emails. It's not like I'm leading with, bows and arrows. I reach right. out usually very diplomatically. So, and I also wrote, morning, I guess the former Flint mayor is also anonymous because she was quoted in the story that he says was all anonymous sources as saying, yeah, the governor tried to get me to basically obstruct a congressional investigation. So he responds, understood, but that's generally not our style. Your story stands up pretty well. So first you told me there's too many anonymous sources. First you told me it was already reported. I point out all the new information that hasn't been reported. I point out it's not anonymous sources. I sent to you the former Flint mayor who was on the record of the story, but then went and did on-camera interviews with other outlets. And he writes back, understand, but it's generally not our style, meaning we generally don't just do a write-up on somebody else's reporting, which, again, I've already established is bullshit. They do it all the time. And your story stands up perfectly well. So, again, it's already been reported before, which is a lie, but then your story stands up perfectly well. So do these people not understand, Jen, how information works? Do they not understand how communication works? Like what was his name? Guglielmo Marconi was like the founder of something. Do they not understand that a story could stand up perfectly, but if it doesn't go through channels to reach people, that it doesn't matter if the story stands up perfectly? Like, do they not understand that it doesn't matter what their style is? And by the way, they're lying. They routinely do write-ups on other people's stories. But do they not understand that what they are doing is burying and hiding reporting that shows a criminal cover-up? This would be the equivalent. And I'm not saying this is the same thing. So the Miami Herald, was it? A reporter from the Miami Herald broke the Jeffrey Epstein story by and large.
Yeah.
She did amazing work.
Julie K. Brown.
Right. She did amazing work. She broke it. She stayed after it for years. Frankly, I think a lot of her bosses tried to get her off of it. And when she broke it, the normal thing, how it's normally supposed to be done, happened in journalism. Other outlets picked it up, credited her work, then they did their own reporting, and it got to a lot of people. And then Jeffrey Epstein was, killed himself, which
Yeah.
let's not get into. Obviously, that didn't happen. But she broke it. Other outlets started mad dash doing write-ups on what she broke and crediting her. That's how it works.
Yeah.
So what he's doing is would basically be the equivalent of this great Miami Herald. Is that Miami Herald?
Yeah.
Miami Herald reporter breaking a massive story about a massive sex trafficking ring with billionaires connected to the government, and other outlets saying, "Oh, your story stands up well. We'll review it." What?
Yeah.
It's insane. And honestly, I'm not going to give him the benefit of the doubt. It's not that he's a moron. This man who in his Twitter profile says newsman is intentionally hiding life or death information from a whole community. He has the power to inform the community. He's choosing not to. That's it, Jen.
Yeah.
So, it just, I mean, these responses get worse and worse and worse. He tells me that's not our style. Okay, it's not our style to inform our readers that the governor's top advisor was going around paying people off. It's not our style to tell our readers that the governor lied to Congress and he perjured himself and he knew about a deadly disease and stopped the news from going to the public while they were still drinking the deadly water. Not our style, not our style, not our style. I mean, we could go on. So, I responded to him to that.
Let's shout out Jaybird D quickly. Jaybird D, $20 in the super chat. Absolutely incredible. Thank you. Jen, just wanted to say that we all admire you greatly and are frankly in awe of the work you and Jordan do and the audacious stories you break. Anyone who is paying attention knows that you two are courage personified. Thank you, Jaybird D. Amazing. We appreciate you so much.
Thank you. And thank you, Lana Dell, $25 in the GoFundMe. Thank you, Anonymous, $20 in the GoFundMe. Wow. We shouldn't forget and lose sight. We've raised $164,000 when did we launch this GoFundMe? 2018? So
Yeah.
a little under 3 years. We've raised $164,000. Trust me.
You guys are so great. It's because of you.
Goldman Sachs never donated.
You all have a hand, as furious as we are with these local Michigan outlets, with CNN, as we'll rail against them in a minute. You guys are the reason that we broke this story that we're talking about. You're the reason the House Oversight Committee is investigating right now. Like, you guys have a hand in this. So thank you. Keep it up.
So, I mean, honestly, I have other emails with other editors. I think we've showed you enough for now. We should also point out the Detroit Free Press, which is the biggest news outlet in Michigan. I've already told you I met with an editor from the Detroit Free Press in a parking lot. I handed him on a silver platter.
In a Beamer.
Yeah, he rolled up in his nice Beamer. I handed him on a silver platter the story from January. He told us Detroit Free Press, we regret not doing more on Flint. What you have here is really great. Let me bring it to my editor. 3 days later, we're going to pass. We just don't have the resources. Mind you, they have 7 reporters on their investigative team. So the Detroit Free Press, they did. Jen, the archived article you sent me, can you send that to Colin? Because I don't think I sent it to him.
Yeah.
They actually did pick up one of our stories over a year later, but they picked it up. The only issue with it was, I don't want to say plagiarism per se, because it wasn't word for word lifted from us. But really what they did, instead of covering our story when we broke it in April 2020, instead of informing their readers then, while the criminal investigation was still going on, what they did was a year later do the same exact story, only extremely watered down without crediting us. I mean, you literally can't make this up. These outlets, so their idea of following up is literally copying your story, featuring the same exact sick Flint couple, and pretending that this is new information that you broke. So not only do they lie that this information has already been out, then they copy the story that you've done and pretend that it's brand new. And the example here, I don't know if you have it, Colin. So this was in the Detroit Free Press, I think like a month or two ago, I don't know. And it was about Richard Baird.
About 3 months ago.
Yeah. It was about Richard Baird, who is Governor Snyder's go-to, top advisor, best friend. Baird called himself Snyder's fixer. And the Detroit Free Press wrote a piece a year after we broke this story about the governor's advisor going around Flint, offering sick Flint residents, I think what they called, not payoffs, but what is it, like special programs or special deals, featuring, by the way, the sick Flint woman that we originally featured in the Vice story that they're saying we have anonymous sources, just re-interviewing her, only not reporting all of what she told us, which was the governor's top advisor told her and her husband that he was going to talk to the governor about these special deals that they were making. So
yeah, when Jordan showed me or sent me this story, he was like, hey, they essentially stole our story. And so I opened it thinking like, okay, maybe they kind of reported on a similar thing or whatever, the same gist. No, they basically stole the story. It's insane.
So we have two things going on here, folks. We have on one end, reporters from major media outlets. Thank you, Colin. We have reporters from major media outlets lying that the stories they're ignoring have already been covered. So that's lie number one. And then you have the largest newspaper in the state of Michigan writing a story, headline, put it back on, Richard Baird served as Michigan's governor's right-hand man. It's now landed him in court. So by the way, the headline's not even about that he allegedly paid people off, but like buried in the story is him paying people off, only we're not going to call it paying people off. But
we have to say, Jordan, like the headline is kind of acknowledging that our story landed him in court, we could say.
Oh yeah, no, to be clear, journalism matters because the governor's number 2 was charged with misconduct in office and I believe obstruction of justice based on our reporting. That is how he got those charges. By the way, to really drop the veil, we are the ones who told the Michigan Attorney General's office, who put them in contact with Christina Murphy. They did not know about Baird meeting with this couple. Okay? We provided them with the information. We told them the story. They called her the next day and went to meet with her the next day. And I have the Facebook messages to show it. So it's not only that our reporting led to the charges, before the public reporting, we gave them the information. So
because that was more important than like breaking the story, was that this was egregious and horrible.
Right.
Yeah.
And by the way, to be clear, let's not forget, all in terms of criminal charges, in terms of convictions, really what the Flint water crisis boils down to, if you're going to convict, is notification. Notification. When did the governor of the state know the water was toxic? When was he notified? That's it. If you have that date or you have the loose date, you could potentially convict him. But so it is very important when sick Flint residents have audio of a meeting with the governor's top advisor, right? An audio of that meeting. That meeting, the sick residents are telling excuse me, the governor's top advisor is telling the sick residents he's trying to pay off, yeah, I'm going to go talk to the governor about this. So he knows about this, quote, pilot program, which was a payoff, not a pilot program. A pilot program usually implies other people are on it. There was no other people on it. So I don't know. I think it's kind of important if the governor of Michigan was informed that his top advisor was going around Flint trying to obstruct a criminal investigation, trying to potentially extort or bribe people. So what's worse, Jen? The fact that they're lying that they covered it, that they covered these stories, that it's already been out there, or that they basically plagiarized the stories a year later and pretend that it was never out there. I mean, and by the way, how can that story that they put up, Colin, if you could put it back up, how would people actually know? It's not enough to just cover the story. If you're twisting the story into a pretzel, if you're bastardizing the story, if you are watering it down to the point that it's sinking like the Titanic and it's not actually what happened, then the people don't actually know the severity of what really happened. So this story, and it's behind a paywall, so I can't send it to you to read, but this story was kind of like 10% of what we reported, and they just copied our story. And when I reached out to the reporter from it saying like, hey, besides the fact that this is copied and watered down, like, you could credit us. He just basically told me like, yeah, I believe the way it's credited is correct, because they didn't credit us. So, obviously we need to wind down because I need to do some things before we go. But
there are some things that I want to show about the House oversight. Yeah. So, so before we do wind down, just quickly, I want to further illustrate some egregious kind of media activities, because the media, whether national mainstream media or local Michigan, Detroit, Flint media, I think we've made it clear that this story is being buried. This really important story showing alleged destruction of evidence from the top, from Governor Snyder, his administration, coinciding investigations launched at the same time as the criminal investigation, changed and coordinated timelines of the Flint water crisis of the administration, kind of like changed and withheld documents of, from the prosecution, from Snyder's office. You guys can read the story if you haven't already. That's statusquo.pub/Flint water cover-up. So in effort to get this story out further, and Colin, I don't know if you have this. If you don't, I can pull it up on my screen. And in fact, let me do that. Yeah, so let me just do that. So in effort to get this out more widely, what we did was we went to PR Newswire and we actually took out a press release based on, and we were going to do this before anyway, but when the House Oversight Committee reacted to our reporting and we got the sourcing that there was going to be an investigation, we added that on, but we did a press release to try to get this out more widely, to have more reach than we could get on our own. Because when you do a press release from PR Newswire, they send it out essentially to about 10,000 newsrooms, and they put it up on AP and all of AP's partners, and they do a ton of stuff. So AP's partners include CNN. AP's partners include like Yahoo News. AP's partners include a ton of news outlets that you know and probably see all over the place. So my point in talking about this is to show you, and I haven't done this on Newsstream for a while, but one second here. My point in showing you this is to further illustrate that it's not it's not a matter of people not seeing the story. Like, and by people, I mean news outlets, editors, etc. So we have this, it's up on the AP platform. So we have the apnews.com, domain. It's up there right now. We have the news about the House Oversight Committee. We have Mark Ruffalo's tweet up there. We have a bunch of information, really important, really great. It's getting a lot of views. It's getting a lot of attention on PR Newswire, on AP, on all of its associates and platforms. We have proof because PR Newswire has a ton of statistics and analytics that you can look at. We have proof that CNN has accessed this. So we know that CNN has accessed this reporting and looked at it. They've done nothing with it. So this is media views. So CNN is part of that. Again, they've done nothing with it. This is since yesterday. We know this based on their ISP information for nerds out there. This is how we know. We know that Crain's Detroit Business, which was one of the others on our list that we sent out for folks to contact, Detroit Free Press, Detroit News, WDIV TV. We know that it's been sent to all of those folks.
Can I just point out, Jen?
Yeah.
Crain's, which is a business outlet in Michigan,
Yeah.
their reporter is another one that has
Chad Livengood, yeah.
Yeah, that has routinely told me either this stuff has been reported or your sources are wrong. Just so you know.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so when we told you guys, we sent an email out. You can also find this on Jordan's Twitter, twitter.com/Jordan Sheridan. That's why, like, Henry and Lisa, when we pointed out, like, that's how they got the list of people to email, that we talked about Gary Miles and Leonard. So in addition to that, these folks have gotten it through our PR Newswire report. So all of these folks have received it this way as well. Additionally, C-SPAN, Fox News, CBS, New York Times, Apple News, CNBC, CBS, ABC, US News and World Report, they have all gotten it. So additionally, we know through ISP reporting, through PR Newswire, because again, they get to access the ISP and they report all of this info. We know that the US House of Representatives have accessed this 3 times. So I just find that interesting. We know that someone from Facebook headquarters has accessed this. We also know that a law firm has accessed this, which I just find interesting. And you can look them up, Cohen, Milstein, Sellers and Toll, and they are involved in like political litigation. So we'll see what comes of that. But additional Michigan outlets, Lansing State Journal, Oakland Press, WDIV TV, Wood, a bunch of different Michigan outlets, a ton. There are 46 pages, thousands and thousands of outlets, thousands. I could scroll forever. This is how many outlets have received this on top of who we have personally emailed. And you'd be hard pressed to find outlets that are, reporting on our reporting. So I guess all that is to say, what else can we do? And we paid a hell of a lot of money for that PR Newswire release to try, because we care so much about the people of Flint, about this important reporting, about getting the truth out. We get the AP News domain. We get that to spread around. Great. Maybe someone will report on it. Maybe someone will pick it up based on who has it in their inbox. We paid for a special release for reporters who have specifically signed up to get news releases for news related to the House Oversight Committee. This is news specifically related to the House Oversight Committee. Has anyone reported on it? No. This was a lot of money. It was a
$1,000. Let's just say what it is.
It was more because of how long the press release was. So, yeah. So the initial quote was 400 words. It's over 800. Yeah, I had heart palpitations in sending it because of how much it costs. But it's because we care. And it's because the reporting is important. I mean, I don't know what else to do at this point. We're working literally day to night and spending a lot of money to try to get this news out, to try to make sure that the people of Flint know about this. That's why I say, if you guys can help financially to help us get this out, to help defray the cost of that press release, we know that CNN and Friends have access to this. We know that they know. Again, GoFundMe.com/statuscoup, PayPal.me/statuscoup. Help us if you can help defray the cost of that, because it's a real punch in the gut and other places. Yeah, I don't know what else to do at this point. There seems to be a lid of silence. You can't force a horse to drink, or you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink, I think is the saying.
There's not a lid of silence. There's a media cover up. That's what this is.
Yeah.
Not to be mean, Jen, but
yeah,
literally, I don't give a damn about, in terms of resources, CNN, all these outlets have an army compared to us. Rachel Maddow has more researchers and producers on her team than any other show I know. I mean, I used to work at MSNBC. Her show is known to be staffed by like PhD nerds and researchers. So it is 100% possible and doable for them to cover the ongoing pandemic and the surging cases, the January 6th hearing that, and all that, for even these state media outlets to cover it. This is not an issue of people being lazy, of people being stretched too thin and just they can't cover everything. This is an issue of professional, high-paid journalists that, are put through, in terms of messaging, they are thought to be the paper of record or the worldwide leader in news, CNN, or, Detroit Free Press, literally free press is in the name. And they are actively hiding information. CNN, for example, all right, they don't want to put it on TV. They could do a write-up for CNN.com. CNN.com has a lot of users. Yahoo, same thing. MSNBC, same thing. You don't want to put it on TV. Obviously, I think you should, but this is why I say, we put it in our description. Support us, cover the stories that the corporate media is covering up. It's not a bumper sticker. It's not a clever slogan. We just showed you for nearly 2 hours, they are actively covering up major bombshell information. And by the way, if you think they're covering up bombshell information about Flint, what makes you think they're not doing this across the board on so many other critical issues? Not just domestically, but about U.S. government internationally. What makes you think this is only Flint? If they're lying about, this has been reported elsewhere about Flint, how many other journalists are they telling? Yeah, we're not covering it. It's already been out there. Or, we don't have the resources. Can't invest. This, that. We've even been told we don't work with freelancers. So that's why we said, then fucking put your reporter's name on the story. With Vice, at one point, I offered to take my name off the story. So I hope you guys know what I've been saying recently about, sure, protest outside Pelosi's office, McConnell's office, outside BlackRock, police departments, whatever. All those are good. But you are letting, to me, 75% of the rot off the hook. Because the government wouldn't be able to be this corrupt. Governors, mayors would not be able to avoid justice or knowingly make people sick or knowingly poison people if there was an actual media apparatus in this country to stop them from doing that, to hold them accountable, not after the fact, but in real time, and after the fact. So the corporate media, it's not really media per se. What it is a multi-billion-dollar public relations firm with public relations people that put on makeup and selectively push narratives while burying real information. That's what it is. It doesn't mean there's not from time to time good stories out there by these outlets, but by and large, just like politicians will only go so far because their donors won't let them go further, these outlets will only report so far. They'll only touch certain topics. If they touch certain topics, they'll severely water it down because of financial concerns, because of concerns for access. And this is why, this is a large reason that we don't have universal health care, that we don't have so many things, and that not only do we not have them, but there's been propaganda and people have been brainwashed to think it's too much to ask or it's radical to ask. Could you imagine, like, other countries? I've spoken with people from other countries that are like, wait a minute, that's not fixed, that water problem? Or wait, nobody's been convicted? Nobody's gone to jail?
Well, people in our country say that.
It's unfathomable. So, I share Jen's. Honestly, I don't know what more I could do. I literally have been just blind direct messaging randos on Twitter to share the tweet.
Yep.
Like, I have spent hours and hours and hours just literally looking at tweets that have been retweeted by, like, Susan Sarandon retweets or tweets something. She gets a lot of retweets. Going down the list of people that retweeted her and sending them the story and asking them if they could share it.
Yeah.
Under under the throw gum at a wall and see what sticks. And just if we could get the tweet a lot more eyeballs, maybe that will force the media. Not that we're going to stop trying, but we just have to be honest. It's tough. It's really tough because it's really difficult. That the hardest part of all this, unfortunately,
I'm putting this up because it's about to disappear. Keep going.
The hardest part is unfortunately not breaking the story, which is plenty hard. It's really fucking hard to get this information, really hard to build sources, really hard to keep traveling back and forth to places. It's really hard. So think about how crazy it is that the hardest part is not breaking the information, but getting it to even be acknowledged and covered.
Yeah, I never thought that would be the case. I always thought, once you break a big story, so the hard part will be like getting sources and combing through data, getting the information, whatever. Once you break the big story, everyone will be shocked and horrified. And of course they'll share it. That was clearly naive. Clearly. Yep. Truth Bearer, $10. You all just exposed the whole media once and for all. Thanks for everything you're doing as a couple of the only real journalists left in the country. I'm going to screenshot that and use it because it does mean a lot. And we appreciate you. We appreciate all of you for sure. It's really maddening because you get in as a journalist for the right reasons, or at least you hope that's why everyone gets in. I'm in journalism to expose the truth, to hold power to account. And I would hope that that's why everyone is in journalism. But it's very clear, exceedingly clear, that is not at all the case. Big Scooby, $9.99 in the super chat. Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
So, I mean, we're only two people. We'll keep working on it. We'll keep trying to get media outlets to pick it up. I mean, we haven't even gotten into trying to get politicians to speak out.
Stacey Havens, $20 in the GoFundMe. Thank you. Go ahead.
We haven't even spoken about trying to get Ro Khanna tweeted something. Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib tweeted something. I mean, this comes with us reaching out to them repeatedly. But that's it. Couldn't get.
Yeah, and I've reached out to Pramila Jayapal again yesterday, hopefully. I spoke in person to Cori Bush at the Medicare for All March March for Medicare for All on Saturday. Hopefully she will. I'll reach out to her in written form again. Bernie, hopefully. We'll see. This person got back to Jordan.
By the way, we haven't even addressed Flint's Congressman Dan Kildee has not said a word. Michigan Senators Debbie Stabenow, Democrat. Michigan Senators Gary Peters, Democrat. Crickets. We've reached out to their office several times. So it's not just the media, it's the politicians burying it too. So, you know, we don't want you to jump over a bridge. We don't want this live stream to make you hopeless, because then why would we bother doing any of this if it was hopeless? Listen, it's not a small thing. It's not a nothing to get politicians to react to your story, to get the Congressional House Oversight Commitment to go on the record and issue a statement. We have gotten some small victories so far. So we just have to keep chipping away. And hopefully one day it just fucking explodes. And frankly, the last thing I'll say, shame on the independent media who hasn't covered this. Shame on the independent media who haven't covered this. You know, aside from a few, Matt Taibbi, Katie Halper had us on, Abby Martin and Mike had us on.
We've never interacted with him. We would love to be on. Will Menaker from Chapo Trap House retweeted the story. We'd love to be on. We'd love to be on TrueAnon with Liz Franzik and Brace Belden. We were happy to be on with Abby and Mike, as we said on the Empire Files podcast. Yeah, but that's, you know, been crickets from others.
I mean, Tom Hartman is hardly like capital P progressive. He had us on. I've gone on some local radio shows. But I mean, let's just call it what it is. Like, we'd love to go on Breaking Points. We'd love Kyle to do a video. I believe Mike from the Humanist Report is going to do a video. I mean, we'd love Jimmy to do a video. I mean, we're not.
Yeah, Kyle tweeted the story. We appreciate that.
He tweeted it, yeah. You know, we know that there's a lot going on. There's a lot of other stories that spike people's interest. But like, if independent media is not going to cover a massive government cover-up broken by independent media, then we're really fucked.
Yeah, I have to say, like, people are talking about who's tweeted the story. I have to say, like, I like sorted a list of like Jordan's top followers and people, and we DM'd people, and people like Sally Cohn and Rosie O'Donnell and like some of the even like random top followers that Jordan had retweeted the story, and we very much appreciate that. So shout out to Rosie.
Feel free to give us money, Rosie. So yeah, we'll keep going.
I used to love watching Rosie when she would like shoot kush balls into people, right, into the audience.
And by the way, to the viewer who emailed us mad that we didn't respond to your emails right away, this is why. It's not just live streams, folks. We're working 24/7. Probably definitely to the detriment of our physical and mental health.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just tweeted Jen earlier. I'm like fucking broken.
Text message.
Our
life is tweets.
She asked physically, mentally, or spiritually. I said all three.
All three.
And now, you know, moving forward, going to Cleveland tomorrow. Going to be there Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Elections on Tuesday. We'll cover rallies, you know, investigate if there's any shenanigans. And then after, we'll see. I mean, I'm trying to organize a trip to Minnesota for Line 3. But honestly, I need to also, you know, factor in my health. It's the summer. I want to spend time with my wife, my dog. Mom. And yeah, I've been going pretty hard for the last 3 years. Well, 6 years, but particularly the last year or two. And like, aside from my honeymoon, which was great, like I was thinking the other day, like I need to learn to say no. I need to learn to say no. Not because I don't want to cover everything, but it's just not possible for me to cover everything. And I don't really think I'm good to myself, status quo, my family, if I'm just burnt the fuck out.
Yeah.
Because it affects your mood too. So anyway, that's it. Please, if you can, support us. Statusquo.com/join. Statusquo.com.
And GoFundMe.com/statusquo or PayPal.me/statusquo. Any amount helps. I did see someone earlier saying, I support you on multiple platforms. I can't do it anymore. Like, help additionally. We completely understand that. We are only saying if you do have the additional funds, we can definitely use it. The press release to try to, help get the truth out about Flint is a hit. The Cleveland trip is a hint, but it is important. Like, this is why we do what we do. So only if it is feasible for you.
Right. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you in Cleveland tomorrow. We got a lot of other videos that we haven't published yet, so those will be sprinkled in. And yeah, if you can support us, great. If you can't support us financially, just keep sharing the videos, and we'll see you soon.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.